All right. In class, I had up a bit of a challenge. After we introduced arrays, I asked us to try to complete these three objectives using arrays, right? So the first one was to create an array and have the code build up the array to have the numbers 1 to 10 in it in order. Then, after completing that task, I wanted us to create an array and have the code build up an array that lights up the lights on the circuit playground, 0 to 9 in order. And then the last one, I wanted us to create an array that with code will build up the numbers 1 to 10 randomly with no repeats. So let's go ahead and tackle these in this video. If you weren't able to get them in class, or maybe you did, but you want to have a reference to go back to that, so that you can go ahead and look at this video and hopefully you'll be able to come back to this video and understand how these things work, because arrays can be complicated. All right, so let's tackle the first one. Let's create an array where we build into it using code the numbers 1 to 10 in order. So we're going to go ahead and throw out forever, because we only want this array to have the 1 to 10 in it and then stop. So let's go ahead, bring out on start, and let's make this much bigger. All right, so on start, we're going to go ahead and create our array. So if you remember, arrays are basically just variables. And in this one, we'll do nums 1 to 10, because we're going to put in there the numbers 1 to 10. We're going to set nums 1 to 10 to an empty array. That way we have an array called 1 to 10, but it's just got nothing in it. Nums 1 to 10, but it's got nothing in it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to start to add to that array, but using code. So we'll get our friend here, right, for index. We love that for index loop. And we'll go from 0 to 9 so that it loops 10 times. Remember, if we count starting 0, then our end number always has to be 1 less than what we want. So we want 10, but since we count from 0, we're going to go 0 to 9. And then we're going to add to that array to the end, nums 1 to 10, add value to the end. And what are we going to add to the end? Well, we'll add index. And if we do this and we console log that at the end, so if you're unfamiliar with this block here and what it does, let's actually go to a different program real quick. So let's go to a new project, and real quick on start, we will console log hello. What that does is it sends to the console, which we could see here in this white, whatever we put in there. So we said to put hello, so we put hello. And if I create a variable, all right, just call it X for now, and we set X to 0, and we console log the variable X. Well, instead of having 0, when I refresh this, it should just be 0. And if I create X and I console log X and I create a loop 4 times, I get 4 zeros. And even better, if I bring out our change X by 1 and I refresh that, I should get 1, 2, 3, 4. So all console log is doing is writing to the console whatever we ask it to. So it's really useful because here we can actually see, even though we're not, like usually we would be checking variables here by using the lights. Here we can make a variable whatever we want, and we could see what it's doing. So every time we add 1 to this variable, we're sending it to the console so we could see what it does. Very good for debugging. So here, we'll console log our array nums 1 to 10 and see if we got what we wanted. Because remember that we wanted the numbers 1 to 10 in order. Let's see what happens when we console log our array right now. If you want to try to take a guess, you can pause the video, think about it, and then play it to see what you think we're going to get here. But, all right, let's go ahead and look at that now. And here we're close. We've got numbers. We have 10 numbers, and they're all in a row, but we go 0 to 9. Because remember that index is 0 on the first loop, and then 1 on the second loop, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9 at the end. So we do count 10 times, but we don't get 1 to 10. We get 0 to 9. So how can I get index to be just one more than what it needs to be? Because all of these are just one behind, right? I want 1 here, but I have 0. I want 2 here, but I have 1. I want 3 here, but I have 2, so on and so forth, all the way up to 10. So all I need to do here is take index and add 1 to it. And now, if I refresh that, I should be able to log that and get 1 to 10. So you see, by adding 1 to there, I was able to get what I wanted because it was 0 to 9. If I add 1 to that, I get 1 to 10. And the reason why I asked everybody to do this in class is because, getting 1 to 10 is very useful. But now we know that we could do this for any set of numbers, right? If I want, for example, 11 to 20, I just add 11 to that, refresh, and now I have the numbers 11 to 20, right? If I wanted 99, to 108, the number is 99 to 108, I could do that. Or if I wanted 91 to 100, I can do that. All right. So here we finished getting the numbers 1 to 10. Now let's light up the lights 0 to 9 in that order. So this is basically like how we did the Cyclone game, except we're going to do it using an array this time. So we'll throw all this away. And this time we'll make a new array, and we'll call this one lights 0 to 9. Lights 0 to 9. We will again make that an empty array to start out with. We will loop 10 times, just like we did before, from 0 to 9. And we'll add to the end, just like we did before. Very, very similar. All right, repetition, learning all of this is really the key to it, is just repeating over and over and over again until it clicks, right? So now we can just go ahead and add index and think about it. Like, right, do we have to add 1 this time? What did we get last time when we console logged? Well, we want the lights to light up 0 to 9. And if we console log this, what do we get? We get 0 to 9. So now that we have the array adding in those values 0 to 9, we can use the array to light those lights up. So if we set the pixel color to turn on and then off, and remember that we're also going to want now that delay variable since we're turning things on and off. So let's make a delay variable. I think half a second is pretty good, so we'll do 500 milliseconds. And we will pause for that amount of time in between turning them on and off. But now where do we want to set the pixel color at? Which one do we want to turn on? Well, we want to turn on the what's in the array, right? The position, the pixel color at where we are in the array at that time. So the first time I loop, I want to turn the 0, 1 on and then off, then 1, then 2, then 3, and so on, all the way to 9, just like we did when we did the Cyclone game. So we will take the lights 0 to 9, but we can't just put this in here, because remember that that's the entire array. We want to access the specific box inside the array. So we're going to go ahead and in arrays, we're going to get value at lights 0 to 9, but we're going to get value at where we are in the loop, which of course, again, is index. We could duplicate that and put that in there. So now, wherever we are in the index of the array is what we're going to is where we're going to light that up. So we can do 0 on the first loop, light up 0. Second time, light up 1. Third time, light up 2, and so on, all the way to 9. And if we refresh this, we'll watch it happen. And if we looped through the array going back to 0 when we were done, we would essentially have the Cyclone game. Notice that our array hasn't changed here, right? Still 0 to 9. Now you might be thinking, like, why go through all of that? What's the point, right? I could just put the index here, couldn't I? And not even use the array at all. And would that work? Let's refresh and find out. Oh, you can't do this with having this and this in there either. And sure enough, just putting index in there works. Because remember that index goes 0 to 9. So we're lighting up 0 to 9. But what if I wanted to turn these on in any order I wanted to, right? The array has 0 to 9 in it because, not just because we want to go in that specific order, but because that is a list of numbers that represents every light. That's 0. That's 8. That's 6. That's 9. That's 4. So if we use the array instead of just index has to go 0 to 9 because that's the order the loop goes in. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3 to 9 every single time. But now that we've put these numbers in an array, we can go in any order we want. And to prove that, let's go ahead and go 0 to 9. And then I'm going to duplicate this entire block here. I don't need to add to the array anymore. So I'm going to, once the array is made, I don't need to make it again. And in between going in order the first time and the second time, I'm actually going to reverse the array. Look at this block here. This will flip the numbers in the array. So if it is 0 to 9 the first time, it'll be 9 to 0 the second time. Let's watch this happen. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And we go 0. We follow it all the way to 9. And then we go backwards. And if I click the console log, you'll see that we went 0 to 9 and then 9 to 0. And we have a beautiful data visualization of that up here, which I love that little thing. But there you go. So you could see we could do anything that we want. We could scramble this array up and we can go in and we could have random lights, which is what we want, right? I didn't say this at the beginning of the video, but the purpose of doing all of this in the first place is so that we can create almost like a Simon Says game and light these lights up randomly in order to create a Simon Says game where, you know, a random light will light up and then we're expected to remember that and then input it and then two lights will light up randomly, and then we remember those, and so on and so forth, just like the Simon Says game. All right, so we completed our first two objectives, and we even did a little bonus objective there with the second one, but by reversing that. Let's go ahead and do this last one. Now, this last one is quite a bit more difficult than what we just did. So, you know, maybe pause the video, maybe rewatch that first part there, try to digest what we just learned. But I really want us to understand arrays thoroughly, like really, really get them. And the best way to do that is to try to randomize an array. I really think that this is a great way to understand how this works. So let's go ahead and make a new variable. And we're going to do rand nums, right? Random numbers. And we'll bring out our onStart loop again, and we'll set random numbers, of course, to an empty array. And now, if I simply loop 9 times like I did before, and each time I go through the loop, I add to the array rand nums, add value, and I just do a random number between 1 to 10. And I console log that, I'll get 10 random numbers, no lower than 1 and no higher than 10. But the problem is I'm going to get repeats, right? I mean, it's possible that I won't, but it's very statistically unlikely that I won't. Here I have 3 10s, as you can see. I have 2 7s, as you can see, 2 8s. The only ones that don't repeat looks like are the 3 and the 9 and the 5. So I got a lot of repeats there. So we can't just do this. We can't just add in the random numbers 1 to 10. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. But there is something that we could do, right? And this is where visualizing our arrays really, really comes in handy. Remember that we said that an array is simply like a really large box, right? So this one was rand nums. I won't be able to probably fit that, but I'll just do rand number sign, right? So we have rand nums, and it's empty currently, right? We look in the box, there's nothing in there. We did our last code, which put stuff in there, but it didn't put what we wanted. It put in 10 random numbers, but there were a ton of repeats. So what if we created another array though? What if we made a different array, and in that array we had sorted numbers? And in there, right, we look inside that box, we have an array, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we chose from this randomly, right? We didn't just choose the numbers 1 to 10. We choose from this list randomly, and then we take one out of this list and we throw it into the random number box. So now random numbers at the very beginning has 4. When we go back again through that loop to choose another random number, we can't choose 4 because 4 has already been chosen and thrown into the random number box. So now we're guaranteed not to get any repeats, because now when we choose another random number, right, maybe we choose 6, we throw 6 in there, and now 6 becomes our second number, and we can never choose 6 again. And we do that over and over and over again until there's nothing left in here, and we have all the random numbers all the way to 10 in there. And that's going to be our strategy for getting our random numbers all the way to 10. So let's go ahead and try that now. Let's go ahead and make our next variable. And we'll make this one, of course, we had random nums. So let's do sorted nums this time. And we know how to make a list 1 to 10. This is why I asked us to do this for the first one, right? Because we were going to, of course, we were going to see this again. So let's set sorted nums to an empty array. And we'll duplicate our for index loop where we do sorted nums index plus 1, just like we did earlier. Put that in there. We'll console log that just to see that we're doing things right. Sorted nums, there we go. And when we refresh this, we have sorted nums 1 to 10, and we still have our wrong random nums. This is incorrect, but we're getting closer. Because now that we have our sorted numbers, instead of getting just completely random, we add to random nums remove value at end. Actually, let me go back a couple of steps here because I didn't mean to delete that. I just meant to put this in there. So add to random nums from sorted nums, remove value at, okay, remove value at, and now we need to get a random number, right? We need to get a random number from sorted nums. Now, let's just see what happens if we put index in here. What random nums becomes. Pause the video, try to think about it. If we're going to get from the sorted nums box index, what's going to happen to random nums? All right, hopefully you paused the video, thought about that. Let's take a look. Okay, so we get 13579. That's interesting. 13579. And why is that? Random nums, add value, sorted nums, remove value at index, and put it at the end. So well, index is 0. So we get from sorted nums the value at 0 and put it at the end. So that's 1. And then because we got 0, right? This might be a little hard to think about. Let's visualize this. So because we got 0 from sorted nums, let's write this out again. Boom, boom, boom. So 0 was 1. Remember that the position is 0, but its number is 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Right? Put a bracket on there. Get our commas in here. Boom, 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 boom. All right. So the first time we take out 0, and let's visualize that by notating these positions here. Right? That's 0. Oops. That's 1, 2, 3. 5 is 4. Right? Everyone is 1 less. 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 is 9. So we took from the 0 position the 1 and put it in random, right? And comma. Now, because we removed it, everything shifts over. So now 0, the 0 position is now actually, there we go, is now actually 2. Right? That's 0. And all these shift over. And now that's 1, and that's 2, and 3, and 4, and so on and so forth, right? So now index goes from 0 to 1. And now we grab 3. And then we repeat that process. So basically we're skip counting 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. But then by that time, the array is so small that when we ask for position number. So we're asking for 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. When we ask for the fifth one, there's nothing there, right? Because now this array has been shortened so much that we're actually looking outside of the array. And that's why we just get a bunch of commas, because there's nothing to grab. So this is obviously not going to work. And they're also obviously not random. They're in order. So that's not going to work. Let's try a different thing. What if we did random? What if we grabbed a random value from this array from 0 to 9? Because remember, that's got the positions 0 to 9 that we're looking for. Try to think about what that might do. Pause the video and then come back and let's take a look. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and refresh this and let's look inside. Okay. So we're closer. We're definitely getting random numbers, 9, 8, 10, 4, 5, 6, but then we still have these empty spots. What's with that? What's with these empty spots that we're getting? Right? And the answer to this here is, again, we're reaching outside the array. If you ever get those empty spots when we're trying to grab numbers from one array and put them in another, it's because we're reaching outside of the array. Remember that sorted nums, right, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Get our commas in there. And then our random one is blank, has nothing in it. On the first try, I forget what those numbers were, but let's just say that, right, we get 8 in there at the beginning. And now we have 8. And then the next, and then 8's gone. So now this does not go 0 to 9 anymore. It only goes 0 to 8 because everything shifts over. So we got 8 the first time, which would have been the 7th position, by the way, right? We would have asked for a random number, 0 to 9. We would have gotten 7, which would have pulled 8 out of there. Now, we only have 0 to 8 to look for. But my program still says to choose a random number, 0 to 9. So if I choose 9, I'm not going to get 10. I'm going to get this position, which is 1 outside the array. Because that's nothing, I'm going to get another comma. And now the third time I'm looping through this, it might get, position number 1, which would be a 2. And now that 2 is gone, this is not 0 to 9. It's no longer 0 to 8 anymore. Now it's 0 to 7. So if, again, it tries to grab number 8 or number 9, it might grab, if it tries to grab 8 or 9, it's going to grab something that's outside the array. So I get a blank. And it's going to keep and you'll get a blank every time we get a number that's too high for the length of this. All right. So how do we do that? How do we decrease this pick random? Because we want to get 0 to 9 on the first trial, but then we want to get 0 to 8 and then 0 to 7 and then 0 to 6, right? Now, if you remember from Cyclone, we can do that where we, create another variable. And maybe we call this decrease, right? Decrease. And our decrease value starts at, maybe it starts at 9, right? Decrease is at 9. And then we change decrease by -1 every time we go through this array. So we stick decrease right there. So now it's 9 the first time we go through, and then 8, and then 7, and then 6. And this should work. If we look at this, let's go ahead and do a refresh. And there we go. 10, 2, 3, 9, 1, bop, bop, bop. 1, 4, 9, 7, 8, so on and so forth. And every time our random array now is truly, truly random and with no repeats. The problem with this is it's a bit extra in terms of code, but if you were able to get this in class, then that's awesome of you, because you were able to take what we learned about Cyclone and what we learned about arrays, smush those two together. So if you were able to do this, that's very, very impressive, right? But we have a better way, because if you remember before what I was saying when we were looking back here, that the size of this array gets smaller and smaller each time we take a number from it. It's an array that goes from 0 to 9 the first. It's an array that has 0 to 9 in it the first time, position 0 to 9. The numbers are 1 to 10. Then when we take one from it, it's got position 0 to 8 in it, and then 0 to 7 and 0 to 6. And if you've done some poking around in this array tab here, you may have noticed that we can store as a variable the length of the array. And the length of the array gets smaller and smaller each time we loop through. So instead, we can actually put here, not pick random 0 to decrease, right? We don't need to create an extra variable to do this for us. We just ask for what the length of sorted nums is. Now there is one problem with this, and it's sort of unique, not unique to JavaScript, but we still will get some gaps. Sometimes, of course, and not every time, but sometimes we're going to get some gaps. And the problem is, it's because the length of the array is the number, how many items are in it, right? But what we're looking for is the position of those numbers. So let's go back to our full array, our full sorted array. Well, they're all crossed out. So let me write it one more time for us. That was the numbers 1 to 10. Okay. And its positions, which of course are 0 to 9. But its length is how many are in it, right? Which of course is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So its length is 10. And if we remove one from it, we go 0 to 8, but its length is now 9 when we remove one. So to avoid having any bugs in our program, we have to do the opposite of what we did up here. We wanted the numbers 1 to 10 instead of 0 to 9, so we added 1 to index. So we're just going to have to subtract 1 from length of array. Bubbles are so hard to work with when we have block code. There we go. And now if I refresh, I should get random every time with no blanks. Perfect. Now, we might ask, why do we do this? Why is it, why would we go through all of this work to scramble an array, especially when those other methods that I had used earlier had worked, right? This looks like it's so much, but really when you do typed code, this really isn't that much to begin with. But also, the reason is now we have a program that can be extended. We can extend this as much as we want, because we know that if we just have length now, right, we can make this as big as we want. So if we have a variable and we call it length, and we set length to whatever we want. It was 10 before, but let's go ahead and, well, we want to keep it, -1, right? So that we can put these in our index here. But if we set length to, instead of 9, we do 19. Now we could put length in here. And in here, and now we get a much larger array by only changing one number. And remember, that's always our goal. Our goal is always to try to reduce our constants. And here we only have a couple of constants, and that's this one, which is to add one to index so that we get 1 to whatever. And really, we don't even need this if we didn't care if we were getting a 0, right? So now if I refresh, I'll have 0 in my array, 0 to 19. And that would even remove a constant. But, you know, maybe we don't want 0 for whatever reason. And here we have random 0, 2, and then the -1. Those two are necessary just to get this to work. But this is acceptable as far as constants go. So you see, this may seem complicated at first, but it really reduces the complexity of our program way down the line. So we can do a lot with this with changing a very, very, very small amount. And in a future talk, when we talk about functions, we could wrap this whole thing in a function called scramble array. And once we make it once, we never have to see it again, right? For example, with this reverse list, right? This is a function. Someone made this. There is a way to reverse a list, but we don't know or really care too much about what's actually going on in here because we just made it into a block. And well, that's talking about functions. We'll get there another day. But for now, here is our code for, let me just put that back to 9 and put index back to +1 so I can end this with the proper code. But right here is the code to get 1 to 10 sorted array, and then our random array, random each time with very little amount of constants. And we could change that array to whatever size we want, anytime we want, by just changing that number right there. All right. So as usual, I hope this video helped, and I will see you in the next one.